Okay, so this is a presentation that covers chapter 43 in our textbook, Work, Stress, and Love, Investigating Crossover Through Couples' Lived Experiences. So this chapter focuses on occupational and shared life stressors that are experienced by most modern day couples, and it discusses how these stressors can impact a couple's relationship both positively and negatively. So, first, the authors discuss psychological crossover, which is a term that's used to explain the way that one partner can influence the thoughts, emotions, behaviors, etc. of the other partner. So, an example of this would be if partner A had a bad day at work and came home in a bad mood, and then partner B adopted this mood over the course of the evening, even if they didn't have a personal reason to be in a bad mood. So partner B is picking up on partner A's stress, and they're taking this stress and its consequences on as their own. So, research on this topic has shown that the term psychological crossover might be more accurately represented by breaking this concept down to differentiate between psychological crossover and psychological spillover. So, while crossover represents the stress of one partner inducing stress on the other partner, spillover is used to describe stress from one aspect of life, so for example, work, that bleeds over into other aspects of that same individual's life. So maybe their stress from work is spilling over into stress that's being exhibited in the time that's being spent with their family. So, this research has been able to influence a lot of what we know about couple relationships and the role that occupational stressors play here. But one of the main focuses of this chapter is that the authors note that much of this research comes from a time when traditional couple relationships consisted of a man who went to work and was the breadwinner, and a woman who stayed at home to take care of the domestic and childcare duties. So, because the majority of this research focuses on the more traditional couple dynamic, it also assumes that the woman in the relationship is sort of a passive vessel onto which the male partner projects his emotions, and the female partner just kind of, takes those on as her own. So, because the majority of this research, once again, focuses on this traditional dynamic, the authors have proposed their own research that focuses on a more modern day example of a couple. So, due to a lack of updated research, the authors proposed a 5 step kind of model that describes the way that crossover and stress can be experienced in today's relationships. So each stage is identified as either being intrapersonal, so it only affects one partner or the other, or interpersonal, which means that it affects both partners. So, in the first stage, the authors explore what happens between partners when a negative work stressor is perceived. So, an example here might be working overtime. While this can be a negative stressor, the study found that at least in the short term, the perceived benefit, in this case, job stability, outweighed the perceived negative effect. However, stage 2 occurs when the perceived negative stressor begins to create strain in the individual. So, here it was found that spillover was common in participants, but that most of the time the partner experiencing the stress attempted to cope using interpersonal strategies, so social support, coping mechanisms, before fully turning to their partner for support. So, this reduced crossover in this specific stage. Um, However, if these coping strategies didn't work and their moods and behaviors continued to be affected by their stress, eventually the other partner began to notice a change in partner A's behavior. So, while some partners might take this stress on as their own, again, reflecting modern relationships, it was found that many participants were able to simply observe this change in their partner without allowing the strain to negatively affect them. Um, Unfortunately, this was not always the case, and so stage 4 describes the instance where psychological crossover occurs and partner B begins to be negatively affected by partner A's stress. So, here the authors found that relationships with partners who do not understand the other partner's need for communication and support tend to introduce more strain on the relationship and have more negative relationship outcomes than couples who provided and perceived support in the relationship. And it was actually found that even just the perception of support from one partner to another could be beneficial to the outcome of the relationship. So, this brings us to stage 5, which addresses relationship outcomes. So, while the crossover of stress has the ability to negatively affect the relationship, it also has the ability to strengthen the bond between the couple. So, it was found that the partners who shared their occupational stressors with each other and actively worked together to navigate these challenges had better and more positive relationship outcomes. So, in addition to the occupational stressors that are the main focus of this chapter, there are additional stressors that can kind of come in and compound the occupational stressors. So, the two factors that are noted by the authors are common life stressors and interpersonal factors. So, the authors describe common life stressors as being anything that the couple shares responsibility in, like raising children, household responsibilities, family expectations, etc. So, these life stressors can add more strain to an individual, resulting in spillover for the individual into other aspects of life, and then eventually crossover from one partner to the other. Um, the other influencing factor is interpersonal strategies that can be used to offset stress. So, individuals who have strong social supports outside of the relationship or have adapted successful coping techniques are less likely to experience crossover in the relationship because they're less likely to be as affected by stress. All right, so with all of this being said, how do we work with this in a therapy setting? Well, the author's research found that most crossover, and therefore negative relationship outcomes, were experienced by partners who disagreed about how to best manage stress in the relationship. Because of this, part of therapy should focus on facilitating a discussion between both partners about the way that stress is being experienced and each other's motivation for engaging with the perceived stressors. So, to kind of give an example of this, so if partner A is working in a job that requires a lot of hours per week, let's say 60 to 70 hours per week, partner B might be perceiving this negatively. They might be thinking, partner A doesn't want to spend time with the family, they don't care about us. Whereas partner B might be thinking, yeah, it's a shame that I can't spend more time with my family, but I'm making money and therefore providing more financial stability. So the problem here is that partner A and partner B are not understanding each other. So, helping each partner understand each other's thoughts and feelings and motivations around the stressors can help the couple to gain perspective in the relationship. Additionally, helping the couple to develop interpersonal strategies that can be used to offset stress can reduce crossover. So, someone who maybe doesn't have many social supports, hasn't adapted really any healthy coping mechanisms, that would be a really good thing to focus on in the clinical setting, is helping them develop those strategies so that crossover can maybe be stopped before it occurs. And so finally, the therapist should help the couple to find mutually agreed upon ways to provide support for each other so that the stress can be better managed in the relationship. So, once again, a lot of the negative relationship outcomes came from the fact that partners just weren't understanding each other and they weren't supporting each other in the way that they each wanted to be supported. So, helping the couple develop and practice those techniques for support can be very helpful. So, the conclusion here is that negative stressors are a part of life, and occupational stress affects most relationships in one way or another. But with proper communication and therapy techniques, stressors can be managed in a way that leads to positive relationship outcomes. Thank you for listening, and I hope that the information provided here can help to better understand the interplay between work, stress, and love in modern day relationships.